Last night I preached also, and I realized at the end that I had never introduced myself. And of course, Father would never do that. My name is Deacon Bolek. I'm a seminarian from the Diocese of Peoria, studying at Mount St. Mary's University. That's where all the seminarians are from. We're on our way down through Indiana, on our way to Illinois for a mission trip. I introduce us because the first time that I ever came to one of Father Meyer's parish, the way he introduced me was they were doing, well, it's a strongman thing, obstacle, whatever. And he told me all about it. He's all excited, and I said, I don't need to prove my manliness by doing an obstacle race. I can just buy a truck and grow a beard, you know. And so he introduced me at all the masses. He said, yeah, this is Eric. Who cares? Anyway, and just moved on. He's very good at introductions. We're on our way to the university. We're going to, essentially what we do, we've done this several times now at different universities. Every spring break or fall break that we have, we do one of these. There'll be about 40 of us. The rest of them are traveling today. Pray for safe travel for them. We'll show up at the university Monday morning, Monday afternoon. Tuesday morning, we'll just walk out on the campus, all of us, all 40 of us, and do our best to start as many conversations about the faith as we can. Okay? Now the big blonde one that hasn't shaved in a few days over here, he'll have like probably only 3 conversations, but each one of them will be life-changing for the person, truly. And the rest of them do their best. Now to the gospel. There's obviously a theme in today's gospel, and just throughout the readings today, of a mountain experience. It's all throughout the scriptures that we hear of these mountain experiences. Just a few off the top of my head. Moses gets the 10 Commandments on the mountain, brings them down to the people. Jesus is crucified on Mount Calvary. In the first reading we hear from Abraham, who takes his son up Mount Moriah. The Jesus giving of the Beatitudes is he's perched on a mountain. Regularly he goes on retreat up a mountain. There's something about mountains throughout the scriptures that I think we have to think about. I think a couple things that we can realize of these mountain experiences is, one, that they're good for us. We ought to go on retreat, to retreat away from what everything is, to go up, to be, closer to God, to get away from everything. And also that God does very profound things on those mountaintop experiences. I'm sure if you, after Mass, when you're greeting the seminarians and realizing how weird some of them are, that you'll see that some of them had these real profound encounters with Jesus Christ on retreats, and that's what helped them go to seminary. There's something about retreats. Now, the gospel is all about the transfiguration. It can be somewhat difficult to, why on the second Sunday of Lent are we talking about the transfiguration? We're in Lent. We already have a day celebrating the transfiguration. I think we have to first pick apart the gospel a little bit before we can realize why it's important that we have this gospel today. Now it begins, Jesus takes the boys up the mountain. Now, as a complete side point, this is literally has got nothing to do with the gospel or the homily in any way, shape, or form. But pay attention every time that they refer to the apostles, they always say Peter first. There's always a distinction between him and the rest of the apostles. Again, this has nothing to do with the homily. Just, you're welcome. He takes them up a high mountain apart from themselves. He takes the 3 extra special ones up the mountain with him to give them a profound encounter. They get up there, and lo and behold, Elijah and Moses appear. In other words, Moses being the one who brought the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, and Elijah the first and mightiest of all the prophets. They are there to represent all of the Old Testament, the law and the prophets. And Jesus is conversing with them as if they're figuring something out. All throughout the Old Testament we hear all these things of, the Son of Man must come and suffer so that his people might have eternal glory, but then there's no Messiah in the Old Testament. There's something that's missing. There's a question that's asked, and no answer that's given. Peter, who, if I was in the same situation, I think I'd be just as nervous as he sounds in the gospel. Jesus, he's with Jesus. He's now, bright white, and there's two figures that he knows as a good Jewish man, Elijah and Moses, standing before him. It doesn't happen to me very often, but I could imagine that would be somewhat terrifying to see that. And so nervously he stands before God and says, I could make a couple of tents so you guys can stay if you want, And Jesus, I'm sure, is thinking, that's kind of a silly question, Peter, but no, we're fine. They're not going to stay real long, okay? It continues, the cloud comes down upon them, so they're already terrified, and now this level of mystery comes upon them. They can't quite see everything, things kind of disappear. In the cloud they hear God's voice. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. The cloud lifts, and we have just standing Jesus. We had the law and the prophets, those who asked the question, and now we have the fullness of that gospel, Jesus. The profound encounter with the Word of God. Now, why do we have that during Lent? Lent is a time of retreat for us. The church provides, and then they ask us to do certain things on retreat. To give up something, to pray extra special hard, and to be charitable. Now, if you're like me at all, and I hope that you're not, but if you're like me at all, I have failed at my Lent program already a couple times. I haven't given up on it, praise God, but I surely have struggled in certain parts of it, the more challenging things that I have. My apostolate back at school is, I do campus ministry and I interact with some of the students, and they already tell me their struggles and sometimes just downright giving up on their Lenten programs. And I think that's the reason why we have the Transfiguration this weekend. So we can have that profound encounter with Jesus Christ. If the purpose of Lent is to come closer to Jesus, really the purpose of it is to fall in love. To be in love with a perfect lover. And you might have failed already. That means it's time to get back up and keep going. Maybe it's time to intensify one of those things or all of those things, so that you may radically do something for the Lord this Lent. Truly, my prayer for you as you're praying for us on mission, my prayer for you as a parish, is that this Lent, above all the Lents you've had so far, is the most challenging Lent so far. That this one, looking back, you can say, that was a Lent that changed my whole life. Our rector at the seminary has this line, who I'm just trying to make my own line so that when people hear him say it, they'll think it's my line. Fall in love with Jesus, and it will change everything about your entire life. Fall out of love with Jesus, and it will change everything about your entire life. Please, have a good Lent. Have a very challenging Lent. And may God be good to you in that.